right. Well, those of you who don't know me, my name is Daniel Buffano. I am the chair of the YPN committee. I am not responsible for putting this on. We have an amazing team of committee members that are responsible for doing this and for having Justin on to talk to us, which we're really excited about. The pre-registration for this course or this class or Zoom call or whatever Aspen call whatever you want to call it, has been tremendous. So I know people are excited to hear Justin talk. Just a couple of quick things. Most importantly, just wanted to say congratulations to Kelsey and Troy Yoho, who just welcomed in their second child. So that's pretty cool. Congrats, you guys.
Thanks.
You're welcome. A couple other announcements. We are going to be doing our annual bell ringing again this year. So we've been bell ringing for the Salvation Army now for, I think this is our third year. And so that date that we have scheduled right now is November 20th at Bimart. So if you guys want to participate, we have 4 2-hour slots that we're trying to fill, and that's 10 to 12, 12 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6. You guys get it. But if you want to come by and help out with the Salvation Army and do some bell ringing, please email or call Christy. She's up in the top left corner, I think, for most everybody. There's Christy. Call or email her if you guys want to participate. It's been a lot of fun. We just go out in just 2-hour slots and ring the bell and have a good time. Also wanted to let you guys know that our next event is a resume building class that is getting put on through BBSI. And that's really about all the things that are needed in a resume and that, or maybe how to look over a resume if you're hiring. I mean, all that kind of stuff is going to get covered. That's on November 16th. We did send out a survey for that to get some ideas on when people wanted that class to be. So we're either going to do it at 9 a.m., at 12, or at 4 p.m. If you have a preference on which class or which time zone you would like, if you are interested in that class, just please put it in the chat below. And that way we can, pick a class pick a time that's going to be beneficial for everybody. And so that's that. That's November 16th, resume building with BBSI. And then the last thing I'll mention is we are seeking sponsorship for 2022. We've had some great sponsors over the years, and so we're looking to keep adding sponsors and keep getting sponsors so we can continue to do some of the things that we do, like these classes. And also we hand out scholarships to a couple of local high school students as well who are involved in business and who could be young entrepreneurs at some point. So if you are interested in doing a sponsorship at some point, please let me know. But without further ado, I'm going to be quiet now, and I'm going to let you all hear from Justin, which is who you came to see. So without further ado, Mr. Justin Woolf from Dutch Brothers.
Well, hey everybody. Thanks for having me. I got a little presentation to share here, so hopefully you guys like it. Hopefully it's helpful, but we will see. All right. So yeah, I'm Justin Woolf. I'm the creative director for Dutch Bros Coffee. I didn't always think I was going to be in the art field. I actually started going to school for I'm going to be an elementary school teacher. I was going to teach 5th graders, and the more and more I went down that path in college, the more and more I started feeling weird, and the more I started finding myself drawn to art classes and things like that. And I'd always been told growing up that art was no way to make a living, and that it's just for fun, it's just a hobby. And the more I sort of dove deeper into that and really started getting my education, I realized there was really a career path there for me. So it's kind of how I got into this. So creative director, whoa, there we go. Creative director. What that means is I'm in charge of the brand as a whole, right? For Dutch Bros and for some other companies. And a lot of people think that that's just the visuals, right? They think it's just the logos, the colors, the fonts, all that kind of stuff. But what I've really started to learn over the last 6 years I've been doing this is that it's all of it, right? So it's everything from those visual things to the voice of the company, to the products, to even the people that work for the company, right? Those employees, those are the brand. Like they're actually the biggest example of the brand. So what I do is I make sure that all of those things sort of fall in line and speak the same language, whether it's visually or actual words themselves. Your branding matters as much as your product does, right? I'm going to show some examples to make sure that you believe me, but yeah, it's honestly it's just as important as your product. I don't know if anybody was like familiar with this example, but a few years back, Tropicana, they were already the #1 juice company, in America, I'm pretty sure, and they decided they wanted to do a rebrand. They did it. They spent $35 million on this rebrand. It was a big one. They went from, over here with their little orange on the thing. They cleaned it up. It actually is a pretty cool looking, carton. But what they forgot to do was they forgot to tie in everything else with their brand, right? Everything that the customers had sort of had tied to this brand. And they cleaned it up too much to where it almost felt like it was almost like a medicine, it was a little too techy, all that. And what they actually noticed was that their sales dropped, I think, by like 20% with this change. And it wasn't just because of the visuals, it was because they had sort of lost who they were and they ignored everything that they'd built over the years. And they actually ended up spending another $15 million to change everything back to their old brand. So it ended up costing them like $50 million for this brand, just to find out that had they just stuck with what they had been forever, they just would have been fine. So don't be Tropicana with your brands or your people or whatever. It's a bad idea. Chobani, though, Chobani, they were the #1 yogurt company, in America. But there was something that felt off with them internally, and they felt like they weren't being true to themselves. And they thought there was bigger opportunities out there for them. So what they did was they really leaned into the story altogether, which was, good ingredients, it was good people, it's all those things. And they knew that their packaging and their, their social media and everything across the board just didn't speak to that at all. So what they did was they also spent a lot of money on a rebrand, but they did it really intentionally, and they did everything by hand, and everything spoke to that original, North Star for that company. And actually at a time when things like yogurt and like that sales were declining, they were actually able to maintain and increase theirs and steal a big portion of the market share that they had already had. So be like Chobani, be the Chobani version of you. And I think that's a really important thing to think about, right? Is what is your brand? And a better question is, who is your brand? And it's a living, breathing being, and you need to treat it as such, right? And you need to develop that brand story. What's your mission? Who are you for? What are you for? Who do you sound like? Who works for you? What do you look like? And the best way to do this is to ask yourself, you need to ask your people, and maybe even ask some of your customers. And if your answer is pretty different than your people, then that's not good, right? That's how you're going to end up being in that Tropicana zone, because you can think you're one thing, but if that's not resonating with your customers or your people or things like that, then you're just headed down a real bad path. And it's important to be disciplined and consistent. Don't try to be something that you're not. Bonus life lesson for you. And this shit is pretty hard. You need to get help. You need to read a book. Don't guess. But you can do it. And nobody knows your brand better than you. Maybe just write this stuff down, in a diary just in case. Make a brand book, whatever. So the biggest thing that I've learned through this stuff with branding is that you yourself are a brand, right? So, you need to sell yourself to people every day. You have a story, you have a voice, you have a look, and people will pay a lot of money for that version of you. And I think in, when you're going out, and whether it's, trying to find new clients, or you're trying to find new friends, or you're trying to find, family members or whatever, be true to yourself and who that person that you are is. And I think over the years, my biggest failures have been when I've been very off brand, right? I think a good example of that is thinking that I needed to go down one career path, and really it wasn't true to myself, right? I thought I should be a teacher. I thought I should be a cop. I thought I should be all these things because everybody told me that, art wasn't the answer. Creativity wasn't the answer. And once I really leaned into those, I really saw things start to take off. And even, along those lines, as I've started doing a lot more outside of Dutch Bros with my freelance, I had tried to do some things where I tried to be like some other designers or some other creative agencies, and it really wasn't going well. And when I really started leaning into who I was, which was a guy who liked drawing skulls, who liked to cuss and liked to, draw some weird shit, that's actually when I started noticing that more and more people were coming to me for that. And there is a business out there for who you are and who you should be. And I think it's just important for everybody to sort of lean into that. And that's kind of the presentation part of it. I don't want to talk a lot about this. I really wanted to lean into more like Q&A stuff because I don't like doing this stuff. So I'd rather just talk to you guys. So I know that wasn't 30 on that, but I would love to just answer questions. That's really what I want to do here. So let's do that.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
So as far as everything we see with Dutch Brothers, as far as branding, are you doing all of that, or do you share some of it and some of it exists?
Yeah, so I used to do a lot of it, right? I used to do a lot of the actual like work, like the design work and things like that. But now I have like a very large team underneath of me that spans from our PR team to our digital team, social team, our graphic designers, web designers, even a bunch of like external creative agencies that we use. And I basically guide the whole thing with mood boards, lookbooks, things like that, and just make sure that all those departments are working well together to make sure everything is cohesive and flowing in the right direction.
I had a question. So you talked a little bit about your evolution, kind of how you started leaning into more of who you are specifically and how that started attracting people that dug you, right? So
yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that evolution. Like, how did you get to that point where you're like, dude, I need to do something else?
Yeah. So honestly, I think I kind of stumbled into it a little bit, right? A lot of it came really over the last, 2 years. I had gotten to a point where I was getting really frustrated being at home, not being with everybody while, at the height of the pandemic. And I just really needed to like get some stuff out. So I changed what I was doing drastically on my social media and really started drawing stuff for me and not so much trying to like get the attention of like other people, trying to like sell myself that way. And actually when I like stopped trying to sell myself, that's when I started getting everything, sent my way. And then I just kind of leaned into that even harder, where it's like now, I say no to a lot of people when they hit me up for freelance stuff because it just doesn't fit with who I want to be or who I want to align myself with. And I think that's really important, even for all of you to think, whether you're in the job you have now forever or you're going to your next job, like it's okay to say no to things. If you don't align with the company that's approaching you or whatever, like don't go to it. Like if you're not gonna be happy there, like fuck it, do what you want to do. It's better to have a job that pays less that you're happy with than to go be rich and miserable.
I guess to follow up on that real quick. Sorry, Marta.
Yeah.
See, what did you ever find along the way when you were on that path of like, identifying who you are as a brand and leaning on that, like setbacks where you started being like, I've got this really big opportunity that's coming up, maybe we're not perfectly aligned, but I want to say yes because I'm afraid of what would happen to say no?
Yeah, part of it's hard because I I did have, you know, the Dutch Bros thing in the back pocket, right? So like there wasn't the thing of like, oh shit, if I say no to this, I'm not going to be able to pay rent, you know, like that kind of thing. So I didn't have that sort of setback. But what I did have was I had a lot of people around me who were very supportive of what I was doing, but I also had a lot of people who were not. And again, you as a brand, you've got to, you know, figure out who you're going to align yourself with as well, right? And if there's people who are going to, you know, hold you back and keep you from being who you truly want to be, like you don't need to be with those people. So, I mean, I would say the biggest setbacks I had was that on a personal side was just kind of seeing, you know, those people, who was going to support me, who wasn't, and just sort of making some tough calls. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, cool.
Hi, I got a question, and thank you for your presentation. You referred to yourself as freelance a couple of times in the presentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what you're building, you know, in some ways you're building an agency, right? You got an agency. Like one person's an agency, half time is an agency. Where, I mean, are you going to continue calling your work freelance as you grow? Like, I'm really curious because sometimes for me, freelance is, okay, a gig here, a gig there, kind of like, you know, Upwork, right? An occasional gig. So is an agency a forever freelance? And is every freelancer an agency? Because I'm still trying to figure out where I fit on that spectrum because I also have a day job, right? Can you please share just where freelance ends, if ever, for you?
Yeah, so for me personally, I don't think freelance is going to end because I do really enjoy being like in a consistent role with a team, like on a company where I'm literally, you know, building something from the ground up. For the freelance side of it, I do that because I need to do stuff that's not just under the windmill, right? I need to do stuff that's more for me. I think if I got to the point, you know, where just so much stuff is coming in that I'm just like, you know, I'm not going to say no to this because all that fits my brand and it turns into something, that's great. But that's not my end goal on this. But I think if that started being a thing, that's when you become an agency, right? When you're starting to get these things that align with who you are and who you want to be, and you have so much going on that, you know, you need that extra person or you need to start, you know, it turns into an actual like business, then that's when it goes away from the freelance side, in my opinion.
That's helpful. Thank you. You're under the windmill. I'm under the state seal. So like, I really have to keep things separate, but thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, go for it.
I work in the communications department at our public library.
Huh?
How often do you recommend that like a kind of large community-oriented organization like a public library does like full-on rebranding or a branding refresh?
Yeah, I think that I don't think there's like necessarily like a black and white answer to that. I think it is really important to do regular checks, right? So like I said in the presentation, you know, asking people like, you know, what do people like think, you know, your brand is, or what do you think the library is? Like, what do they stand for? And if it's, you know, drastically different from what, you know, your company or whatever thinks it is, then it's probably probably time to start thinking about a rebrand, right? Or at least a refresh or something. But, you know, if it's working and everybody is like, yeah, that's what that library stands for, and, you know, everything's perfect, then like, don't mess with it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Go for it, Nelson.
Hey, Justin, thanks for your presentation today. When I hear you talk about branding, I can't help but think in my mind, marketing. Mm-hmm. And you know, are you using the words interchangeably? And then a follow-up question would be, when I hear marketing and branding in my mind, I'm also thinking about messaging. What is the message that's going out to the employees and out to the community that you're serving? And then lastly, it was, how has all this come together with respect to supporting a reputation that you're trying to put out? So there are 3 questions.
Okay. So yeah. So I'm not using marketing and branding interchangeably. So in my opinion, the marketing is more of like the skeleton, right? So it's the like, what do we need to do? What, you know, what product are we trying to push? What do we actually have to like achieve, right? Like, what are our profit goals? Things like that. Who are we going after? The branding part of it is, okay, now put like, you know, put some skin, put some muscle, like all that kind of stuff on it, you know. It's making sure that as we're going to get those things, you know, we are not talking to the wrong people the wrong way. And, you know, that we are showing up the way that we want to show up. Because, I mean, anybody can go out and like say, you know, we want to, you know, get coffee in the hands of every single 25 to 40-year-old in this city, you know, for an entire weekend. But, you know, what does that actually look like? That's the branding part of it, and like how you get them to come back and keep coming back. So I think they are really close, but the branding part is like the more nuanced part of it, and it's more the creative part and more of the consistent and protected part. Your branding shouldn't really change. Your marketing will change a lot. What were the other two questions again? I'm sorry.
It's okay. So when I was thinking branding and marketing, I'm also thinking of messaging. But based on what you just said, the branding is how you get the word out and how you're able to approach the different targets that you're looking at. And so branding then is very close to messaging, would you say?
Definitely.
Or is messaging a difference?
No, it's messaging is a part of your branding, right? So like real quick, like you could say, you know, my company is, you know, energetic, positive, you know, kind. So the way that, you know, the messaging goes out, it should feel like all those things, right? It should have positive words. It should have all that kind of stuff. It should not be boring. It shouldn't be, you know, it shouldn't sound like you're reading like a, you know, like a hospital flyer, you know? And on the same thing, you can have the exact same keywords for your visuals, and you can make sure that you're using, you know, bright colors, things like that. It's all the same thing. Messaging is just a part of the branding. The branding just makes sure that your messaging aligns with your visuals and everything like that.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. So in terms of like budget allocation, or like how much of should businesses, especially like smaller businesses, I feel like a lot of people on the call are from smaller businesses, like how much realistically should be allocated to an effort like this? And then not just of finance, but of time, if it's not necessarily your skill set.
Yeah. So hard to say like specific like percentages or whatever on it, right? But I will say it's very important. Like if you don't have a brand and you don't have a story or things like that you want to tell to people, like they're not gonna come to you, right? Like there's nothing there that's gonna resonate with them. So like I said, it's, you know, your brand and your story is just as important as the product that you're selling. You know, like there's reasons why, you know, people go to Tropicana over these other orange juice places, or like to Chobani over these other yogurt places, or, you know, Dutch Bros over these other coffee places. It's because of the brand that they've built, you know? And I mean, a good example is like all the different grocery stores, you know, like people who go to Target and things like that are going there for different reasons than people who go to Walmart, or like it's all about the story that they tell, the products they align with themselves, you know. It's important. So I would say it's like, it's not I wouldn't say it's like, you know, 70% of like your time and budget to branding, but it should be something that you constantly have a pulse on. And it's something that is worth the it's worth the money, because ultimately it'll make you more money, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you so much.
Huh?
Hey, Justin, this is Kelsey. Can you talk about like how some of your marketing cycles and branding cycles nest together, and kind of like what the timeline looks like in like maybe an annual cycle? Obviously, it's different for every business, but kind of talk through a cycle, what it would look like.
Yeah, you mean like quarterly campaign things, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so for us, we look at things in a it's confusing because we say trimesters, but holiday gets its own little section, so it's more like quarters. But we look at things that way, right? And I think it's really important to note that customers' habits change throughout the seasons, right? This won't apply to everybody, but to some people it will. You know,
when you say we, do you mean Dutch Brothers, or do you mean just, what do you mean exactly when you say we?
So I'm talking about Dutch Bros now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and a little bit Weekend, because
Okay.
I do some stuff for Weekend. So yeah. So yeah, habits change, right? So like you're not going to start pushing, hot chocolates in the dead of summer, right? So what we really do is we start looking at the calendar. We really start plugging in, what are we trying to do, in the summertime? What products? What are people looking for? What are people doing at this time, right? So like it's really easy to say, people want cold drinks in the summertime. They want lemonade and all that, but now what are they doing with those drinks, right? Are they going to the pool? Are they going out camping? What are those things? And you start really trying to hone in on these little points on these graphs of where your product goals meet your customers' experience goals, and you try and find something in that sweet spot, right? So I could draw it out, but there's on this chart, you want to find that spot, and if you're anywhere else in this zone where it's like you're doing something that you really want to do, but the customers don't want it, don't waste your time. If you're doing something you don't want to do and the customer doesn't want it either, like don't even think about it. If you're doing something that you don't want to do, but the customer really wants, that's where you get into a weird spot, because like it goes back to the brand thing. Like if it fits with your brand but you don't want to do it, you might want to look into it, right? But if it's one of those things where just because the customer wants it doesn't mean you should always give it to them. Honestly, a lot of times some of the worst things you can get is customer feedback, because it always lives on these extremes where it's like extremely positive or extremely negative. It's very rarely coming from a very level-headed place. Like think about when you get on look at reviews of other companies, there's almost no 3 stars that are like, this did what it was supposed to do. It's either like, this is the best thing I ever had, or this sucked and I want my money back. So no one knows your business better than you, but you do want to be in that zone of you want to do it and your customer wants it. So we really look at stuff. We really look at stuff from that sort of perspective, and we do that throughout all the seasons. And that's a really good way to make sure that we're not getting stagnant. We're giving people what they want, and we're having fun along the way doing it. Anybody else got anything? Because this has been more fun than the presentation part. I hated that.
Have you ever gone you're sticking true to your brand, but because you're I don't know, I think of Dutch Bros and I think of young and energetic, and have you ever alienated people because of that? Or I imagine that that's why they're coming to you.
Yeah, so that's actually something that we've really struggled with for a long time, right? Because there is that vibe, right? So it is the younger crowd, and it is younger employees, things like that. And it's not that that's what we've been trying to do, that's just what it's been attracted. And we actually did this study the last year, where we had a company come in. They did a lot of research, almost too much research on us and our customers, and did all these blind questionnaires and things like that. And really what we're able to pinpoint is that it's not necessarily that we just have the customers that are in that 20 to mid 30s. It's that we have the people who have the mindset of 20s to 30s, right? It's the young at heart. It's the people who are aspiring to stay young and energetic and things like that. that don't want to, be so serious all the time. And they're not looking for the experience to go and sit down and work for a long time in a coffee shop. They're looking for that quick burst of energy and coming in quick, getting out quick, things like that. And so I don't think we've necessarily alienated anybody. The people who don't come to Dutch Bros weren't going to come to Dutch Bros to begin with, because that's not the experience they're looking for.
So in that regard, Justin, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen people's comments on Facebook and social media and all that kind of stuff, that like, there are some people that go to Dutch Brothers and they just want their coffee and they want to go to work. They don't want to ask what they're doing, what they're doing that day, or
yeah.
Do you guys not even worry about that situation? I mean, are you just focused on your crowd then? Because like in my instance, like I'm a real estate broker, right? And I get some people want me to just find them a piece of property and then that's it. But to me, like my job is to help them through the whole process, right? And not just finding properties because Zillow and Realtor.com and all that kind of stuff. So there's sometimes there's a common disconnect, and I'm sure there are those people that want the Starbucks experience and there's people that want the Dutch Brothers experience. I mean, do you even like bother with that other side?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not necessarily going out and chasing that side, right? But what we are doing is, if you come through our drive-through, we're going to give you the experience that you need in that moment, right? So if that's all you need is just for, us to take your money, give you your coffee, and you go on your way and we don't say anything, that's great. We'll read into that. But if you're looking for someone to, talk about, this like tragic thing that's going on in your life and you need a second, we'll pull over to the side of the road with you and we'll talk to you for an hour. Like that's kind of how we do that, is we're meeting people where they're at. And that's one of the things that we've really found on the brand side, is that not every interaction between barista and customer needs to be, the same. It needs to be what that person needs in that moment that fits our brand of positivity, kindness, things like that. Yeah. And that can be done with a smile, and it can be done with, a big talk.
So what I'm hearing is that your brand isn't changing, but like your marketing, for instance, is very like fun. It's very much the vibe that you get when you go to Dutch Brothers, the loud music and everybody's having a good time. I mean, that's your marketing, and how it, sometimes that's how it looks. That doesn't change because that's just who you guys are, but the experience that people get at that moment changes. Is that what you're telling me?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're in line. You're doing something right to get them there. Now you just got to give them the rest of what they're asking for, and let them sort of drive that experience, and it's not always perfect and it doesn't always go right, but I mean, you can try, right? And that's where it comes down to the right people and the right training and things like that. But if everybody's aligned on what your brand mission is and what your goals are and who you are and how you talk to people, then it should be pretty consistent across the board. And it should, your experience should be pretty similar if you go to one here and you go to one in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Justin, it's Troy. Hey, quick question for you on that topic. So you have all these broristas that are, between here and Oklahoma and elsewhere. How do you train them on not only your brand and making sure that they can, they're probably your best communicators, right? So how do you train them on that brand and then make sure that's consistent no matter what area they're in, but also ensure that, they are aware that there are some people that want to just come up, grab their coffee and roll. And there's other people that want to lay down the tragedy and have them be their bartender for the next 5 minutes. How do you kind of train that into those guys that are, 18 to 24 years old? Yeah.
So training part first, it's not really something you can train, right? It's traits that you can look for when you're hiring. And you can tell people to read the customer, right? You can tell when someone doesn't want to talk, not everyone can tell, but you need to tell them that, really push that not everything needs to be this full conversation, and that you just need to make the most of that time with that customer, whether it's 10 seconds or it's 10 minutes, and that's basically as much as you can do on that side. But you can't, you can't like give them a script and look for like, tell them like what cues to look for and these people of like when to shut up. Like, you know, you just gotta trust that you got the right people in place. But I would say one thing that we've got going good for us on how we're able to keep it consistent from, you know, here to Texas to Oklahoma, all those places, where, you know, we're hiring large amounts of employees who have only known about Dutch Bros for, you know, the couple weeks before it opened up to get hired and have never actually gone through one, is that we do have, you know, that entire team of, you know, we call them the mobsters, but they're basically like the best of the baristas from all over the place, from all the different like states and things like that, who they go out and they do those openings and they train those crews and they give them pointers and they let them know like how it should be. And people learn really quick on like how to talk to somebody and, you know, how to be fast and how to do all those things, you know, and that's been something that's been really, really helpful. That and the fact that, you know, the people who are opening those stands, then the operators have been in the system for a long time. You know, they've been managers, you know, all over the place, like in Oregon, Washington, things like that. Like we're opening a stand in like the Dallas area, I think. And the operator who's getting it, she's been in Eugene for like 10 years. And she's, you know, grown up there and she's known the entire thing. So we've got people going out who are now leading that, you know, that next group of baristas and showing them how it's done. And they've got it from the beginning. So that's kind of how we're able to do it. It would not be as successful if it was, you know, letting somebody from Texas who has never experienced the brand, you know, open it up, start it with all these fresh people. And we just handed them a workbook. Like that would never work for us.
So kind of along those lines, duplication is really difficult. That's something I've been experiencing personally. Is there any secret sauce to how you kind of embed that culture and feel into into folks that are coming on and joining you?
Yeah, there's not really, again, like people are who they are, right? So it's really just about finding those personality types or those people with that potential that can sort of enact that, right? And that's another big piece of like the brand is like I said, positivity, kindness, you know, energy, like the things that we look for in like the messaging and the visuals. You're also looking for that in the hiring. So like, you know, everybody gets our brand guide. Like it's not just a thing that's used for like creative agencies or things like that. Like the operators have it. So like they know who we are, they know how we talk, they know like all these things, and they know like our key beliefs and things like that. That's all in the brand book. So if you're interviewing people and you're getting that vibe that like, you know, they might be, you know, a hard ass worker and they might have all the, you know, awards they could have and they might be, you know, best of the best, but if they're an asshole and you don't want to hire assholes, then don't hire assholes, you know? And it's just, it really comes down to the people.
I'm not sure how long this whole thing is supposed to be going on for, but I wanted to ask another question. How does community giving and community engagement play into the brand story?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a big piece of it, and that's another thing that's been really important as we've gone into these other areas is we've really started trying to figure out, you know, how you know, we can differentiate ourselves from other companies, and that's been a big one over, you know, the last 30 years is the give back piece of it, you know. And we do have those 4 main give backs, but what we've really been digging into is how we can make more of an impact at a local level and have it be more meaningful to the communities that we're going into, right? And we're actually trying to figure out how we can do that before the stand has even opened. So looking into, you know, as we go into like Tennessee, trying to figure out like where those cities are that we're going to go into, learning a lot about them, you know, what do they need? You know, if we find out that, you know, the local high school just, you know, has shit facilities, or they, you know, they've needed new uniforms or whatever, like we're gonna go in and we're gonna figure out how to help them out on that end, you know, before that we've even like broken ground on the place, just so they know that we're there and we're going to be there. We've got their back. We're not just some, national, multi-billion-dollar corporation coming in. Like, we want to be a part of the community, and we do a lot of things like pretty quick, where as it's opened up, if there's a, Girl Scout cookies, someone wants to come sell, like, we'll let them sell on the, like, out in the grass or whatever. Like, it's all about, just really connect on that local level. It's a huge piece of what we do, and it all aligns with the brand. And there's, again, with the branding, there's a lot of things we say no to as well. Like, we really steer away from things that aren't necessarily tied to youth. We try and really lean into like the kids, right? So like, we don't do things where we sponsor, the local, men's slow pitch softball teams. We don't sponsor like individual athletes. Even on some of the stuff, like, we've been rethinking some of the corporate sponsorships where, like, yeah, it's been really fun, partnering with, the Timbers, the Kings, things like that. But the only way we're going to continue with those is if we can have a deeper push into like the side where they help like the youth. So really leaning into like how the Timbers make, these like soccer complexes, like in cool like neighborhoods up in Portland, like for like street soccer and things like that. Like, we want to be a part of that. We want to be a part of NBA Cares and things like that. We're less into the mindset of we're doing this just because we want to box at the stadium, like a lot of companies do.
Thank you so much.
Very cool. Real quick before somebody else, Mona put in the chat that you had mentioned some books, and what specific books shaped your thinking, or if there are specific books that shape your thinking.
Yeah. So let's see. The book that I reference the most is not a branding book, but it's Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. And that has been the book that I've used the most to like maintain a good team, right? And it's really helped me like dig into like how people fit together. It's really helped me dig into when it's time to maybe cut ties with somebody who is really bringing the team down. And really important one. Another really good book that we actually all read when we get hired is Raving Fans. Good one. There's another one that I like. Oh, it's called Stop Listening to the Customer. That's another good one. But really, I actually I listen to a lot of podcasts. So I listen to a lot of podcasts where none like consistently, but more just like I find podcasts that have like creatives on it, and I listen to their stories. I listen to like different brands, things like that. Read a lot of books about, I think it was like Creativity Inc., where it was like the whole story of Pixar. Those are all cool ones, but I don't know. Those are kind of the ones that I read the most.
Justin, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, this is Mona. I have the book question. So I want to get to the guts of you right now, if that's okay. Okay, so when you were in that transition of, and I sent you a little message, but when you were in that transition of stepping into your brand, right? Did you notice a correlation with just who you were as a person, things changing within you, your thoughts, your ideas being shaped by these different books, and who you were becoming? Did you notice that piece of you changing, and that your growth no longer fit with where you were, but that you were that uncomfortable in between, you're ready for that next level?
Yeah, I definitely, yeah, I did notice it. So I definitely noticed that before that switch happened, I noticed that I was not super happy with basically anything I was doing, from like a work perspective, from like a personal perspective. Everything just felt like very like going through the motion, just getting stuff done. And And it wasn't until, I mean, like I said, where I kind of just had like I gotta fucking change something. I gotta start making stuff. I gotta like start expressing myself more, and really kind of hit that mindset of kind of like no fucks given, in the most like loving way. Once I hit that, then everything just got a lot easier, and I wasn't worried anymore. And it wasn't like I didn't care about anything. Like I actually started caring about things more than I ever cared about them before, you know? And really like everything got better with my friends, you know, with my family. Like everything just started feeling more natural, and it was just really nice and refreshing. And it felt like a big weight was lifted off my shoulders once I was able to make that transition.
That's like when you're talking about that, your face lights up, right? And I think we all, as business owners, have to come to that moment of when we find our brand, you know, because right then you understood your value and you weren't going to settle.
Definitely.
Right? Yeah, that's cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Huh?
I have a question. So obviously you have your hands full between the Dutch Bros work that you do and what you're doing as a freelance creative person. And so that there's work, there's the freelance, there's the family. Where are you putting your bandwidth, like either in the community or in self-development, like self-growth? Just share about that aspect. Like I'm picking up like there's something there, right? How do you give? I know you give back. How do you give back in addition to everything you just described?
Yeah. Let's see. I don't think I give back as much as I want to. But I do try, right? I definitely try to use what I have to help people. So I actually this is dumb to say, but I do look at a lot of my freelance stuff, especially locally, as like I just want to help people be better. So like there's a lot of times where don't work for free, but there's a lot of times I work for free where I just am trying to like hook somebody up where, you know, my friend is trying to start something. So I'm like, I got you, dude. Like I'll make it, you know, I'll get this going. Or, you know, this started off as a work thing and then turned into more of a personal thing. I did a lot of stuff for like OFA, like that, the soccer stuff in Grants Pass, like a lot of stuff for that. I don't know. I just talk like this. I've talked to a lot of the high schools before to do things. But yeah, just trying to, when people ask, I just try and help them.
Thank you. That was more helpful than you'll know because I've got a pro bono project going on right now. But in my day job, I tell businesses not to ever do anything for free. And like I felt like I was setting up a double standard there, but this is helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think just, yeah, I mean, being realistic and like what's the outcome. And I also, again, like trusting the people that you align yourself with. A lot of times where I've done something, you know, for somebody for free to help them out, it's come back and helped me out in the long run, right? And that's not the goal of when I go into it, but like it's just kind of the natural progression of things.
And it's good for your soul.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. We are getting towards the end here. You kind of, I'll be honest with you, Justin, you kind of scared me a little bit when you ended your presentation. We were like, can we just do questions? And I'm like, oh boy, we got like 35, 40 minutes left. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah,
but
I didn't even want to do the presentation. I just wanted to talk.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you did it this way. It doesn't often turn out like this. And so it's just more engagement. And I think you answered a lot of people's questions and it's good conversation for sure. Cool. So yeah, I appreciate that.
No problem.
Does anybody else have anything before we start wrapping up?
Thank you so much for volunteering your time to help us out. Like this is truly like invaluable insight. So thank you.
Yeah, timing was super dope too. I appreciate it. This was really good stuff.
Good. I'm glad it was helpful.
Well, one of the Christy sent out a survey a couple months ago on some things that, you know, we wanted you guys to, or we, you know, things you guys wanted to see, and this was, you know, one of the biggest topics. And so we can thank Kelsey for arranging this, because she knows Justin pretty well. So this is all good. Thank you, Justin. The messages in here are going crazy right now, so it's thank you for doing this. Again, just a reminder before we wrap up: bell ringing November 20th, and then resume building on November 16th. If you guys, 4 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 9 o'clock in the morning, if you guys are interested in that class and you have a preferred time, if you just want to punch it into the chat real quick, we'd appreciate that. And then if not, then we'll just pick what we think is best and just go from there. So, yeah, I think that should be it.
Got to pick a winner.
Oh, we got to pick a winner. I didn't write any names down. All right, let's
close your eyes and
close my eyes and point like this.
Yeah.
So we're giving away a goodie bag or a swag bag of all kinds of different stuff. So I'm just going to go and put my hand on the screen. Oh, he can't win. He's on the leadership committee. That's Lawton. Try again. Serena Pori. How about that? There you go. So if you want that swag bag, please just go up to the chamber office between 9 and 5 during the weekday, and they can hand that off to you. Okay. You're welcome, Mona. Glad you're here.
Thank you so much.
You're not crashing anything. So anyway, all right, you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.
Great day, everyone.